It was a quiet afternoon when attorney Linda Matthews decided she could no longer keep this warning to herself. She had seen too many cases. Too many good people blindsided by a scam so quick and silent it felt like something out of a crime novel. If you're a senior and you carry a debit card in your wallet or purse, you need to know about it right now. It's called the ghost tap scam, and it's spreading faster than anything she's seen in years. In just 3 seconds, without ever touching you, a stranger could take money straight from your account, and you might not realize until days later. Linda has spent her career protecting people from financial traps, but this one stands out for its simplicity and its cruelty. That's why, in the next few minutes, she's going to walk you through exactly how this trick works, why banks sometimes refuse to refund the losses, and, most importantly, the simple, affordable steps you can take today to shield yourself. By the end, you'll know how to turn this from a lurking threat into nothing more than a story you heard once, and were smart enough to beat. The first time I heard about the ghost tap scam, it didn't sound real. It seemed more like one of those exaggerated warnings that circulate online, until I saw the bank statements, the police reports, and the shaken faces of the people it had already touched. The ghost tap scam isn't about brute force or breaking into your account through some complicated hacking system. It's about speed, stealth, and exploiting a technology we've all come to trust without question. And once you understand how it works, you'll never look at your debit card, or even your credit card, the same way again. At its core, the ghost tap scam is a form of contactless payment theft. The term ghost comes from the fact that the theft happens without physical contact and your awareness, like a shadow moving past you in the night. The tap refers to the tap-to-pay feature built into most modern debit and credit cards. It's this very feature, the one designed to make your life faster and more convenient, that criminals have learned to turn against you. Instead of needing to steal your card or trick you into entering your details on a fake website, they can now take your money while your card remains safely tucked inside your purse, wallet, or even the pocket of your coat. This is what makes it so different from traditional card theft. For decades, criminals had to physically get their hands on your card, pickpocket it from your bag, snatch your wallet, or skim it at an ATM. Even with more modern fraud like online phishing or cloning the magnetic strip, there was usually some point at which you knew your information had been compromised. You might notice a suspicious email, see an odd machine attached to an ATM, or realize your wallet was missing. With the ghost tap, none of that happens. Your card never leaves your possession. No alarms go off, no odd beeps or vibrations alert you. You go about your day, thinking everything is fine, until you happen to glance at your account balance days later and find charges you can't explain. The technology that makes this possible is called NFC, short for Near Field Communication. You've probably used it without thinking, tapping your card on a checkout machine at the grocery store, paying for coffee without pulling out cash, or even using your phone to pay for parking. NFC is a wireless communication method that works over very short distances, typically less than 2 inches. When your card gets close to a payment terminal equipped with NFC, the two devices exchange encrypted data almost instantly, allowing the transaction to process in seconds. In theory, NFC is safe. It's encrypted, it doesn't transmit personal information like your PIN, and it's limited in range. But the key problem is that most cards with NFC are always on, always ready to transmit if they get close enough to a compatible terminal. And criminals have learned that close enough can happen without your cooperation, sometimes without your awareness at all. Imagine this. You're standing in line at the pharmacy on a quiet Tuesday afternoon. You've got your handbag over your shoulder, waiting for the clerk to call your name. A man stands behind you, shifting from foot to foot as if impatient. He moves closer, just enough to be polite in a crowded space. You think nothing of it. Hidden inside his jacket pocket is a portable payment terminal, no bigger than a paperback book. He presses a button, positions himself so the terminal brushes close to your bag, and in less than 3 seconds, your card's NFC chip picks up the signal. A $40 payment processes instantly. There's no need for a PIN. You don't hear a beep or see a light flash. You have no idea that anything happened. This is the simplicity and the horror of the ghost tap. There's no confrontation, no snatching of your belongings, no sign of forced entry into your account. Just a seamless, silent transaction that looks, to your bank, exactly like you voluntarily paid for something. The scammer walks away, blending into the crowd, and you continue with your day, oblivious. But it doesn't stop there. Many of these criminals are professionals, operating in busy public places where people are naturally distracted. Shopping malls, public transportation, large events, even crowded elevators. They'll hit you for $30 in one location. Then later in the day, take another $60 somewhere else. They know that most banks have automated fraud detection systems that flag unusually large transactions or patterns that seem suspicious. By keeping each charge under a certain threshold, often $100, they slip under the radar entirely. The system assumes the purchases are legitimate. The reason small transactions are so effective in avoiding detection is twofold. First, they don't trigger alerts in your bank's fraud monitoring algorithms, which are designed to catch big-ticket purchases in odd places, not multiple $30 charges in your city. Second, many people are less likely to notice or challenge a small charge. If you see a $12 payment on your account, you might assume it was a forgotten coffee run or a purchase you didn't recall in the moment. Scammers rely on this tendency to dismiss small anomalies. It buys them time, sometimes days, sometimes weeks, to keep hitting the same card before you or your bank catches on. The setup for a ghost tap scam can be alarmingly simple. Portable NFC payment terminals are legal to own and easy to purchase online. They're the same devices used by small businesses, food trucks, market vendors, and delivery drivers. A scammer might buy one under the guise of running a business or get one secondhand. They program it to process small transactions and link it to a bank account or payment service they control. In some cases, they even use stolen identities to open those accounts, making the money trail harder to follow. Once equipped, they head to places where potential victims are plentiful and close contact is natural. Crowded buses, busy train stations, pharmacy lines, festival entrances, anywhere people stand close together without suspicion. They keep the device concealed in a bag or jacket, activating it only when within range of a likely target. The transaction happens in less than the time it takes to blink, and the victim never feels a thing. Some scammers work alone, but others operate in pairs or small groups. One person might engage the target in casual conversation or create a minor distraction, while another executes the tap. In especially crowded areas, they can hit multiple people within minutes, each time pocketing a small but guaranteed payout. For seniors, the threat is heightened not because they're careless, but because everyday habits create opportunities for scammers. You might keep your purse looped loosely over your arm, set your wallet on the counter while signing papers, or carry your card in an outer coat pocket. You might be focused on counting your change, reading a label, or chatting with a friend while someone sidles up next to you. In those moments, you're exactly the kind of target a ghost tap thief is looking for: distracted, approachable, and with your card in a spot that's easy to reach electronically. The sad truth is that most victims don't discover the scam until it's too late to stop it in its tracks. A few days after the thefts, you might log into your account and see a cluster of small charges you don't recognize. Or you might wait until your monthly statement arrives and only then notice that a few $100s are missing. By that time, the scammer is long gone, and the trail is cold. It's important to understand that from the bank's perspective, the transaction looks legitimate. The system did exactly what it was designed to do: process a contactless payment when an NFC card came into range of a terminal. There was no error, no failed PIN attempt, no sign that the payment was anything other than authorized. That's what makes ghost taps so dangerous. It uses the card's intended function in a way that benefits the thief, all without technically breaking the system. So when you hear the term ghost tap scam, think of it as a perfect storm of modern convenience and criminal ingenuity. It's quick, it's quiet, and it's incredibly hard to detect in real time. The thieves aren't interested in taking everything at once. They'd rather bleed your account slowly, hoping you'll never notice the missing amounts until it's far too late. And all it takes is 3 seconds, a few inches of space, and a device that anyone can buy. Once you see how it works, the entire scenario feels different. That friendly stranger standing too close in line? The commuter brushing past you on the bus? The man lingering just a little too long in the aisle at the store? With Ghost Tap, those small, forgettable moments could be the exact instant someone takes money from your account. That's the unsettling reality, and the reason why knowing how this scam works is the first step toward stopping it. When you first hear that older adults are being deliberately targeted by the Ghost Tap scam, it's tempting to think it's because criminals assume seniors are careless. But that's not the truth at all. Many older adults are more mindful of their wallets, purses, and personal belongings than younger people. The reason they've become prime targets has less to do with carelessness and more to do with predictable patterns, small technological gaps, and the way everyday habits create moments of opportunity. For the scammers who are looking for quick, low-risk paydays, those moments are golden. One of the first factors is accessibility. The simple physical ease of getting close enough to make the scam work. The Ghost Tap depends on proximity. A scammer has to bring their hidden payment terminal within a few inches of your debit or credit card. They can't be across the room, and they can't be on the other side of a wide counter. That means they're always looking for situations where people naturally end up close together. Seniors, through no fault of their own, often create those opportunities because of how and where they carry their cards. Think about it. You might keep your handbag looped over your forearm when you shop, with the opening toward the outside. You might place your purse in the shopping cart or on the counter while you count your change. You might carry your wallet in the side pocket of your coat or jacket because it's easier to reach. These habits have nothing to do with being careless. They're just comfortable, familiar routines you've built over a lifetime. But to someone with a hidden payment device, they mean the difference between having to struggle for position and simply gliding past you in a store aisle. Scammers also know that seniors are less likely to keep their cards buried deep inside a zipped inner compartment or wedged between thick layers in a bag. If you've lived through decades of having to take your card out to pay at the register, you've learned to keep it accessible so you're not fumbling when it's your turn. Unfortunately, that same convenience makes it easier for a scammer to position their reader close enough to activate the tap-to-pay feature without you realizing it. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 1 below to let me know that you are still here with me. The second major factor is a lack of awareness about how the technology works. Specifically, the fact that most contactless payment cards are always broadcasting their readiness to connect. Near-field communication, NFC, is designed to be fast and seamless. If the card had to be turned on every time you wanted to use it, the whole convenience factor would be lost. But that constant readiness also means that your card doesn't wait for you to permit before it talks to a payment terminal. It just waits for the right signal to get close enough. Many people, especially those who remember when every card transaction required a physical swipe or a PIN, assume that no payment can happen unless you actively hand over your card or touch it to a reader. That's a comforting assumption, but it's wrong. A scammer's terminal doesn't care whether you're at a checkout line or standing on a sidewalk. If it gets close enough, the transaction goes through instantly. I've met older adults who were shocked to learn this. Some had used Tap to Pay for months without realizing the feature was essentially on all the time. Others had heard of contactless fraud but assumed it required specialized hacking equipment or high-level technical skills. In reality, the tools are widely available, legal to own, and no more complicated to operate than the credit card machines you see at any cafe. The third reason scammers focus on older adults is tied to the environments where seniors tend to spend time. Every con artist knows that the most efficient scams are the ones that don't require chasing the target. They go to where the targets naturally gather. For Ghost Tap thieves, that means places where people stand close together, move slowly, or set their bags down within reach. Community centers are a prime example. They're often busy with events, classes, or social gatherings, and people are relaxed, talking with friends, and not thinking about guarding their cards. Grocery stores during weekday mornings are another. Seniors may browse at a leisurely pace, comparing prices or chatting with neighbors they run into in the aisles. Libraries, senior activity groups, pharmacies, and waiting rooms in medical clinics all offer the same advantage: close quarters and distracted minds. Scammers have been known to blend in by dressing like staff or volunteers, wearing lanyards, or carrying clipboards so they look like they belong. They might appear to be helping with an event or chatting about the weather, all the while maneuvering themselves close enough to execute the ghost tap. Busy buses, trains, or shuttle services are another hotspot. In these settings, people are pressed together by necessity, and the jostling of movement makes a brief tap from a concealed reader seem completely unremarkable. Then there's the final factor, the one that criminals count on the most: the perception that seniors won't notice small fraudulent charges quickly. This isn't about ability. It's about routine. Many older adults grew up checking their bank balances by paper statement once a month, and even those who use online banking may not feel the need to log in daily. Criminals take advantage of this by keeping their charges small, often under $100, sometimes as little as $10 or $20. These amounts are deliberately chosen to fly under the radar of bank fraud detection systems and the personal radar of the victim. A $12 charge might be dismissed as something you simply forgot you bought. A $30 charge might be mistaken for a grocery run your spouse made. By the time the pattern emerges, weeks may have passed, and the scammer has already moved on to new victims. In some cases, the delay in detection is even longer because the victim doesn't use a smartphone banking app or gets alerts only for larger transactions. I've seen situations where seniors didn't notice the theft until their monthly statement arrived, and by then, several $100s were gone. That lag time works entirely in the scammer's favor, giving them a wide window to keep hitting the same card without being detected. Adding to the challenge is the way banks sometimes handle disputed contactless payments. Because the card was physically present and the transaction was processed exactly as designed, some banks initially treat it as an authorized purchase unless the customer can prove otherwise. Without immediate reporting, the path to a refund can become a long, frustrating process. Scammers know this and count on the fact that many victims won't have the time, energy, or documentation to fight for every small amount taken. When you put all these elements together, physical accessibility, gaps in understanding about NFC, familiar public environments, and the slower detection of small charges, you see why older adults have become the focus of this scam. It's not about weakness or vulnerability in the way people often imagine. It's about opportunity. It's about routines that have served you well for decades, suddenly becoming risky in the age of contactless payments. That's why awareness is such a powerful defense. Once you understand that your card is always on, unless you take steps to shield it, you can make small changes that make you a far less appealing target. Moving your card to an inner pocket, keeping your purse zipped, using an RFID blocking sleeve, or simply knowing to be wary when someone stands unusually close, all of these actions raise the level of difficulty for a ghost tap thief. And these criminals, like most, prefer the easiest possible targets. If you're not one, they're more likely to move on. The truth is, technology changes faster than most of us can keep up with, and scammers are always looking for ways to exploit those changes. But being a senior doesn't mean you have to be a statistic in their success story. It means you've lived long enough to know that even the smallest habits can be adjusted when they matter. And in the case of the ghost tap scam, those small adjustments could be the reason you keep every hard-earned dollar exactly where it belongs, in your account and your control. For most people, the idea of a bank refusing to refund money stolen from their account feels unthinkable. We grow up believing that if a transaction is fraudulent, if we didn't authorize it, our financial institution will simply reverse the charges and make us whole again. After all, that's the point of consumer protection laws, isn't it? The reality, especially when it comes to the ghost tap scam, is much more complicated. The problem doesn't lie in the absence of laws. It lies in the gap between how those laws are written and how they're interpreted in practice. Banking laws in countries like the United States, Canada, the UK, and Australia are designed to protect consumers from unauthorized transactions. On paper, that sounds like a guarantee. In the US, for example, Regulation E under the Electronic Fund Transfer Act requires banks to investigate disputes and, in many cases, reimburse customers for losses caused by fraud. Similar protections exist in other nations. But here's the catch: the definition of unauthorized is often narrower than most people realize. It generally means a transaction made without your knowledge and without your consent, explicit or implied. That sounds clear enough until you see how banks apply it to real-world cases. With the ghost tap scam, your card is physically in your possession when the transaction occurs. No one steals it. No one clones its magnetic strip. There's no data breach, no PIN entry, and no obvious compromise of the account. The payment is processed exactly the way the card was designed to function. A contactless NFC chip communicates with a payment terminal and completes the transaction. From a technical standpoint, everything went right. There was no system failure. And because it's the actual card making the payment, not a counterfeit or digital copy, banks sometimes argue that it can't be considered truly unauthorized. This is where the situation enters a legal gray area. You know you didn't approve the purchase, you know you didn't tap your card on any reader, and you know a stranger essentially stole from you. But the bank's fraud department might look at the data and see a transaction that followed every correct security protocol for a contactless payment. To them, it may appear indistinguishable from a legitimate purchase. That's why some victims are told, often to their disbelief, that the charge must have been made by them, or by someone they allowed to use the card. Adding to the frustration is the fact that ghost tap scammers deliberately keep the amount small. A $35 charge here, a $60 charge there. Numbers chosen to avoid raising automated fraud alerts. Many fraud detection systems are designed to flag large, unusual purchases, such as a $2,000 electronics order placed overseas or a sudden spree of high-end retail transactions. They're not built to scrutinize a handful of modest charges spread out over several days in the same city you live in. From the bank's perspective, these small amounts don't scream fraud the way a huge unauthorized withdrawal would. And when the potential loss to the institution is low, the resources they're willing to commit to an investigation are often limited. To the customer, $200 gone from a checking account can mean a week of groceries or a month's worth of utility bills. To the bank, it may not justify devoting hours of investigator time unless there's a clear pattern affecting many customers. Then there's the matter of timing. Most consumer protection laws require you to report suspicious transactions within a certain window for your claim to be at its strongest. In the US, if you report within 2 business days of discovering the loss, your liability is capped at $50. Wait longer, and the cap jumps to $500. After 60 days from the date your statement is sent, you could be responsible for the entire loss. Other countries have similar deadlines, though the exact numbers vary. The problem is that the ghost tap scam is designed to slip under your radar. Because the charges are small, you might not notice them right away. Some victims only discover the fraud when they receive their monthly paper statement, by which point the most favorable reporting window has closed. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 2 below to let me know that you are still here with me. Even if you catch the charges in time, the bank might still require you to prove they were unauthorized. And this is where the burden of proof often shifts, unfairly, onto the victim. In a perfect world, the bank would assume your innocence unless it had evidence to the contrary. In reality, especially with contactless transactions, they may ask for documentation, such as security camera footage, witness statements, or other proof that you weren't the one making the purchase. This can feel impossible when the theft happened in a crowded public space and you didn't even know it occurred until days later. I've seen cases where banks suggested that a family member or friend must have purchased with implied permission. meaning they used your card while you weren't looking, but you had given them access before. It's a convenient explanation for the bank because it shifts the responsibility away from them and onto you. Proving that no such permission was given can be difficult, especially when the transactions are small and there's no obvious physical theft of the card. This legal and procedural complexity is one reason prevention is so crucial with the ghost tap scam. Once the money is gone, getting it back can be a slow, stressful process. You may need to file multiple reports, first with your bank, then with local law enforcement, and possibly with a financial regulator or ombudsman service if the bank refuses to budge. Each step requires time, energy, and often persistence in the face of skepticism. For older adults who may already be dealing with health issues, mobility challenges, or simply the demands of daily life, this process can be exhausting. In some situations, persistence pays off. Escalating the case to an independent oversight body can push the bank to reconsider. Regulators tend to take a dim view of institutions that fail to protect customers from clear instances of fraud, especially when a pattern emerges. But getting to that point can take weeks or months, and in the meantime, the stolen money is still missing from your account. All of this underscores a sobering truth. While consumer protection laws exist to shield you from fraud, they're not always applied in ways that feel fair or straightforward. The ghost tap scam exploits not only the technology in your card but also the gaps in the system that's supposed to safeguard your money. It takes advantage of the fact that the payment process leaves no obvious trace of wrongdoing, that banks prioritize large and obvious cases, and that the law's protections depend heavily on quick reporting and solid proof. For seniors in particular, the stakes are high. Fixed incomes mean every dollar counts, and a few missed grocery or utility payments can create cascading problems. That's why understanding this legal gray area is just as important as knowing how the scam works. If you know that your bank might not automatically see a ghost tap charge as fraudulent, you'll be quicker to act and more prepared to insist on your rights. You'll be ready to push for a dispute claim number, to demand written confirmation, and to escalate if necessary. The best outcome, of course, is to never find yourself in this position at all. But if you do, it's critical to know that the fight for a refund may not be as simple as filling out a form and waiting for the credit to appear. It may involve standing your ground, gathering documentation, and pressing your case to people who would rather move on to the next file in their inbox. And that's why, in the world of ghost tap scams, prevention isn't just better than cure. It's often the only sure way to protect your money. When it comes to the ghost tap scam, the most important thing to understand is that prevention is far easier and far less stressful than trying to recover your money after it's gone. Once the transaction is processed, even if it's fraudulent, you could be facing weeks or months of phone calls, paperwork, and arguments with your bank before you see a single dollar returned. For many seniors, that's not just an inconvenience. It's a real disruption to daily life. The good news is that this scam, for all its cleverness, is surprisingly easy to block if you take a few simple steps right now. You don't need to become a technology expert. You don't need expensive gadgets or complicated routines. What you do need is awareness, a little preparation, and the willingness to change a few small habits that can make you an extremely difficult target. The first and most effective line of defense is using RFID blocking sleeves or wallets. RFID stands for Radio Frequency Identification, which is similar to the Near Field Communication (NFC) technology that makes tap-to-pay possible. An RFID blocking sleeve or wallet is lined with a special material, often a thin metallic mesh, that creates a shield around your card. This shield stops the radio signal from leaving your card, meaning that even if a payment terminal is pressed directly against your bag or pocket, your card stays silent. The scammer can press their device as close as they like, but without that signal, nothing happens. These protective sleeves are inexpensive and widely available. You can buy them online, in office supply stores, at travel shops, or even in some supermarkets. Prices often start at around $5. You don't need anything fancy. Some of the plainest looking ones work just as well as the designer versions. The important thing is to make sure every contactless card you carry is protected. Your debit card, credit cards, even transit or travel cards with tap capability. A single unprotected card in your wallet could still be used by a scammer, so don't leave any out. If you prefer, you can use a full RFID blocking wallet instead of individual sleeves. These wallets come in many styles: bifold, trifold, clutch, or minimalist designs, and they protect every card you place inside. For seniors who want convenience, an all-in-one wallet can be easier than remembering to slide each card back into its sleeve after use. Whatever option you choose, the goal is the same: to create a physical barrier that makes your card impossible to read unless you deliberately take it out and place it near a legitimate payment terminal. The second protective measure is one that many people overlook: disabling the tap-to-pay feature entirely. If you never use it, or if the convenience isn't worth the risk, turning it off is the surest way to stop the ghost tap scam cold. Without tap-to-pay, your card will only work when it's physically inserted into a machine and verified with your PIN. That means a scammer could hold their terminal against your bag all day long, and your card would never respond. Most banks allow you to disable contactless payments either by calling customer service or by changing the settings in your online or mobile banking app. In some cases, you might need to visit a branch in person. The process is usually quick, often just a few minutes, and completely reversible. If you ever decide you want Tap to Pay back, you can turn it on again. Many seniors find that the extra few seconds it takes to insert their card and enter a PIN is a small price to pay for total peace of mind. For those who do use Tap to Pay regularly, the next best defense is to change how and where you carry your cards. This might sound simple, but it can make a huge difference. Remember, the ghost tap scam depends on proximity. The easier it is for someone to get their payment terminal close to your card, the easier it is for them to steal from you. If you keep your card in an outer coat pocket, it's within easy reach. If it's in the outer section of your handbag, right against the fabric, a scammer could brush past you and complete a transaction in seconds. Instead, move your cards to an inside pocket, preferably one that zips or snaps shut. If you carry a handbag, use a compartment toward the center, surrounded by other items. If you carry a wallet, keep it deep in your front pants pocket rather than in a back pocket where someone could easily bump into you. For men who often slip a card into a shirt pocket for quick access, consider ending that habit. It puts the card right at chest height, perfect for someone standing close in a line or on a bus. The key is to make the scammer's job harder. These thieves look for quick, low-effort opportunities. If they have to maneuver awkwardly to get close, or if your card is buried behind layers of material, they're more likely to move on to someone else. It's the same principle as locking your front door. It doesn't make you completely immune to crime, but it encourages the criminal to look for an easier target. The final habit to develop, and perhaps the most important in catching fraud early, is to check your account daily. This doesn't need to be a time-consuming chore. Most banks offer mobile apps that make it possible to view your transactions in seconds. You can open the app while you drink your morning coffee, glance through the most recent charges, and confirm that you recognize each one. If something looks unfamiliar, even if it's just $12 or $30, treat it seriously. Ghost tap scammers deliberately keep amounts under $100 to avoid triggering fraud alerts, so you can't afford to ignore small charges. If you're not comfortable using a smartphone app, you can call your bank's automated phone line or log in from a computer. Some banks also allow you to set up text or email alerts for every transaction over a certain amount. You could set the limit low enough, say $10, that you'd be notified of nearly everything. That way, if a ghost tap charge does go through, you'll know within minutes, not weeks. Daily checking serves two purposes. First, it allows you to report fraud immediately, which greatly increases your chances of getting a refund. As we discussed earlier, banks often have short deadlines for full protection, and the sooner you act, the stronger your claim. Second, it helps you develop a sense of what's normal for your account. When you know your spending patterns, even a small out-of-place charge stands out. Some seniors worry that checking their accounts every day might make them anxious. In practice, many find the opposite is true. Seeing your balance and transactions regularly can give you peace of mind, because you know exactly where you stand. It also helps you spot other potential issues, like forgotten subscriptions or mistaken double charges, before they become bigger problems. Putting all of these steps together, RFID protection, disabling tap to pay, carrying cards in harder-to-reach places, and daily account checks, creates a strong, layered defense. Each measure on its own reduces your risk, but together they make you a far less appealing target. The ghost tap scam thrives on easy access and delayed detection. If you deny criminals both of those advantages, you make their work nearly impossible. It's worth noting that these changes aren't just for the ghost tap scam. They also protect against other forms of contactless theft, pickpocketing, and even accidental payments if your card brushes against a legitimate terminal. Many travelers, for example, use RFID blocking wallets to prevent unauthorized charges in crowded tourist areas. Likewise, carrying your card in an inner pocket can reduce the risk of loss if you're jostled in a crowd. Ultimately, the goal isn't to live in fear. It's to take smart, proactive steps so you can move through the world with confidence. The beauty of these precautions is that they don't require constant vigilance once they're in place. Slip your card into a blocking sleeve, zip it into an inner pocket, make a habit of glancing at your account each morning, and you've already done more than most people to secure your money. The ghost tap scam is a reminder that technology, for all its conveniences, can sometimes create new vulnerabilities. But it's also a reminder that small, deliberate actions can close those gaps. You've spent a lifetime building your savings and managing your finances. Taking a few minutes to put these protections in place is a simple way to ensure that your hard-earned money stays exactly where it belongs. Safe, secure, and ready for you to use on your terms. If you ever discover that you've been hit by a ghost tap scam, the most important thing you can do is act quickly. The moment you spot a suspicious charge, call your bank's fraud line right away. Be clear about what happened. Tell them you suspect contactless payment fraud and ask for a dispute claim number. That number will be your lifeline throughout the process, a reference point for every conversation. Next, request written confirmation that you've reported the fraud, whether by email or letter, and make sure it lists each unauthorized transaction and the date you contacted them. Then, file a police report. Even if the amount taken is small and law enforcement can't investigate every detail, this step creates an official record. Include where you were that day, when you noticed the charges, and any unusual encounters you recall. Document everything. Take screenshots of your account, save all correspondence, and write down the names of bank representatives you speak with. If your bank resists refunding you, escalate the matter to your country's financial complaints authority, such as the CFPB in the US. Sometimes, outside pressure is what gets results. Finally, once the immediate crisis is over, replace your card, disable tap to pay if you haven't already, and use RFID protection going forward. The ghost tap thrives on surprise. Take away that advantage, and you make yourself a much harder target. You've worked hard for every dollar, and you deserve to keep it safe. If you found this story helpful, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with friends and family, especially other seniors, so they know how to protect themselves. Together, we can spread the word, outsmart the scammers, and make sure our money stays exactly where it belongs.